Facts.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Survivor Conquest podcast, season 47, episode 5 recap. I am Isaiah.
I am Kyle, and joining us today, please introduce our guest for the week.
My name's Mason. I'm glad to be here, y'all. Let's just get into it.
All right, so this was a fun episode. It further cemented some prior opinions I had, but Mason, real quick, give us your thoughts on the season overall. How have you been liking season 47?
This season is amazing, I think. I think this season has potential to be my favorite of the new era if it continues on the pace it is. I think how they edited Genevieve, honestly, like how her game was snake in the grass and how they made the edit snake in the grass, I fucking love that. I and this cast, there's some people on this cast where I'm like, okay, they're just there, but most of this cast, they're all great characters. So I'm just very much enjoying the season so far.
That's pretty fair. Any particular characters you're fond of? Isaiah and I both have our favorites at this point. Oh, Isaiah's going on mute. Like this conversation.
I would say my favorite character right now, it's gotta be Andy, man. I just fuck Andy's my goat. I don't know. Actually, I'll talk about that later, but Andy is just like everything to me, you know?
Hmm, that's fair. Isaiah, what about you? You like this episode?
I do like the episode. I like the season as a whole, although I don't know if it's just me. I think this is one of the weaker episodes, but I feel like that's not saying much because this season has been amazing. I agree with Mason. I think this season has the potential to be my favorite new era season of Survivor so far. I mean, my favorite right now is 45, but this pre-merge is so far has been probably the strongest pre-merge. And next episode, I think we're gonna go into Mergatory, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I like this episode. I feel like your opinion could be lower in this episode because the boot this episode, Annika, we've kind of been waiting for this to happen since like the second episode. I've been waiting for Gata to go back to tribal council. I've been expecting Annika to go since their second or since the second episode. So that was nothing special to me. But I mean, we can jump right into it if you guys want to. That tribal council was pretty fun. I fucking loved Andy this episode. I agree with Mason. Andy was so much fun. I love seeing this character come into his own because Mason, I'm sure you've been avidly watching the podcast the whole time, but you might have forgotten that at one time I said that it feels like there's 14 people playing Survivor on one island, and then there's Andy alone on this other island playing his own game. But now I feel like he swam over. He's on the island with everyone else now. He's actually playing the game, and I love Andy. He's so much fun. But Annika going this way, I loved that reaction. That was like one of the best reactions we've gotten in the new era to a vote off.
Yeah. Andy really showed his mastermind this episode, you know? Andy went from, complete joke, and we saw confessionals about him being actually strategical, like him keeping his alliance with Sam and Sierra a secret and trying to go with Annika and Rachel and make them feel better, knowing that Annika was going to be the one going. That's actual gameplay we really haven't seen from Andy at this point, and I'm loving it. I'm loving this redemption arc. This is like Brandon Hans to Surrey Fields. Like that's what I'm seeing. Like we're going
I don't know about
Really?
two
that.
opposite sides of the spectrum, from an outburst recovering
This
to
is
you
Chicken
know,
George to Tony Vlachos. It's a
yup,
big one.
yup.
No, I
I'm
loved it. And one thing that I really noticed this episode, and it's because it's something that, I have literally done as a player, like doing like online survival games, is you saw Andy setting up conversations for himself to have later with Annika and Rachel. I was just like, that's like I don't like I'm sure there's been examples of that happening numerous times throughout the actual show's history, but this was just like so notable because it felt like it was really being presented to us that that's what was happening. And that's something so smart that you see like generally savvy players do is, they go off, they have a conversation knowing that person A is going to go talk to person B, and then person B and A is going to later then go talk to them, and so it'll all circle back around. Because Andy was kind of presenting this narrative, and that was really savvy. And we can at least know that he wasn't doing it accidentally because he told us he wasn't doing it accidentally. I commented earlier on in the season that Andy is in a better position after the premiere, but he kind of stumbled ass backwards into being better allies with Sam and Sierra, Whereas this time, it really feels like he's finding his footing. He's getting a grasp on the game. So Isaiah, what are your thoughts? You've been quiet for a bit.
I was gonna say I am very surprised that Andy didn't go to Sam and told Sam that the girls threw out Sam's name. I thought that was a
I'm
very
sure he did.
well, it wasn't shown on the show. I mean, I guess we don't know
Yeah.
if he did or didn't, but if he didn't, I thought that was a huge missed opportunity. If in case, just in case if there was any doubt within that alliance of that being a thing, I think that would have definitely locked it in. But turns out if Andy didn't say anything, he didn't need to because the vote did go his way. And I do want to talk about Sam because throughout the episode, I guess leading up to Tribal Council, I was really like thinking like, is who's Sam gonna play the idol for? And the possibility didn't like come to my mind that Sam wouldn't play the idol at all, which honestly, I think that was the best way to go about the idol because he didn't reveal his cards. He didn't, I guess, start any sort of mistrust with Andy by revealing the secret just out of the blue without telling him beforehand. So good for Sam. Sam is definitely playing very, I mean, we've talked about it. Sam, I think, is playing very well, especially on the Gotta Try, probably the person who's playing the best. Although that may come back to bite him because I guess we could talk about this later, but at the disappointing social hour twist.
I called it. I said this is exactly what the twist was going to be, and it was.
Very disappointing, but we can talk about that more in a bit. But it seems like the other tribes already perceive that Sam and Sierra are running things. So maybe, I mean, he's playing well, but maybe a bit too well.
Yeah, I will say, Sam, I mean, Mason, I mean, you've probably forgotten this from previously watching the podcast as well, but I've literally said Sam screams Sammy to me from season 43. I think he's better than Sammy was, but at the same time, I can't imagine him not getting like seventh or eighth place. Like that's just like, and at this point, maybe even earlier than that. Like that's just like I envision that so perfectly in my mind. And on the topic of him not playing the idol, I thought that was smart of him. Interesting to point out, Rachel knows he has it, and he just left Rachel out of the vote. So, yes, it's smart right now, but I feel like there's decent odds that's still going to get back around to Andy.
Yeah, I feel like he had two good decisions and one bad decision, and I think him not playing it was the best decision. But I do think if he played it on Andy, I think it would help him more further on in the game because it's going to eventually get to Andy that Sam had an idol. Like that's just how this game has been. Everyone's been chatting to everyone. Doesn't matter what tribe you're on. So like it's gonna get to Andy at some point. Likely Rachel will tell him after. But I think the option of him actually just playing it on Andy and then dealing with like, sorry, I kept it a secret from you later, but like I wanted you to stay. That could have been another option. But I do agree. I think
Yeah.
Sam's playing the best on that tribe. But I did make a bootless prediction not too long ago, and I kind of see him getting sniped pretty early in the merge. That's just how I feel because I think he's going to be seen as like the big challenge guy now that TK's out of the picture. So I feel like that might be his fate in this season.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say, which I'll tell Mason now, is that Isaiah and I have both roundly agreed since pretty much the premiere that this is a woman's season to win. I can't imagine one any of the remaining men winning. Like maybe in some realm of possibility, Andy has a chance or something like that, but I really feel like it's a woman's season to win.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think most of the women have just been significantly better players than the men in this season, and I guess we'll find out. There's still a lot of game to play, but I agree.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll say this. I going back to what Isaiah was talking about earlier, this brand new, never before seen Survivor twist.
What a
I
letdown.
don't I don't hate it, but I really, really don't like it the literal episode before the merge. Because it's just like, okay, half of you get to meet now. Anyway, see you tomorrow on the beach. Come on. Like, if this happens in like episode even 4 or 3, that's really interesting. Because then at that point, it's a lot of different people mingling, and then it'll be like, we're going to circle back. It's basically just a larger scale journey, which they have throughout the pre merge now, which I would have loved to have seen, but it's literally like I said, just hey, nice to meet you. I'll see you again tomorrow. let's tell each other we're going to work together. Great. I mean, I'm sure it will have a pretty big impact from what I gather. It's big that the women are all going to work together. Really feel like that's what we're going to happen. Like maybe we see like Tiana go, but then we see like the women just kind of take over. But yeah, I don't hate the concept of that twist, but right before the merge was so stupid.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I was gonna point that out, but you beat me to it. I do want to say, I don't know if this is a Survivor production thing. I mean, I think I said this off the podcast. I don't know if I said it during the podcast. One of my complaints of the new era is that it feels very cheap. Like, definitely they're cutting costs and finding ways to save money because, like, the Sanctuary is like the same place they always go to for every like reward nowadays. But not only that, but just like the reward itself, like each person only got one hot dog, no condiments, nothing like that, and what, like one soda, and then they got to play like whatever. I forgot what the activity was. I don't know. Feels
Cornhole.
very,
They got to play cornhole.
yes, but like I said, I don't know. It feels very
That's big,
cheap to
man.
me. Like, I wish they would have done something cooler, like maybe hide some type of idol or advantage in like the little like bags or whatever, or like underneath like the thing itself. I don't know. Huge missed opportunity. But I do believe the conversation that they showed between Teeny, Caroline, and Rachel is definitely going to foreshadow, I think, a bigger narrative that's going to be presented in the merge. I mean, we already talked about this is a women's season to win. The fact that there may be a strong women's alliance forming already going into the merge or mergatory. Also, just like talking about that alliance, if you look at the people involved, like Rachel's on the bottom of her tribe. Teeny is, I guess, maybe on the bottom of their tribe, and Caroline just has options. She's not necessarily on the bottom. And another complaint I have with the new era is that the gameplay doesn't seem as fluid anymore because of the lack of tribe swaps. I think people are sticking with tribe lines, and it just makes for a very boring game. But the fact that we actually had this twist and this interaction between these three people, I think it can make an opportunity for a very interesting merge and mergatory that isn't so I guess stuck in tribe lines. So if you look back to New Era seasons, we have like the Tika 3, we have the Reba 4. Like it's a common trend. So hopefully in Survivor 47, we see some more fluid gameplay this time around going into the merge.
Yeah, I definitely think I kind of called it since like earlier on. I don't think tribe lines are going to be like a huge dynamic like they are in most other seasons because I mean if you look at every tribe like you got I mean Rachel was just blindsided on her tribe and then obviously you got like Soul, Teeny, and Rome, all who are like worried for their game. Well, Rome's not worried, but he should be worried for his game. And then you got Tiana just throwing Gabe under the bus during that last episode at uh the little sanctuary thing. And I think come merge, it's gonna be like a scramble to like make mix matched alliances with other tribes because I don't think there's a single tribe that's going to want to work together. All of them at merge. I think they're all going to try and go off and make their separate alliances, and I think that's actually going to make this season even more interesting than it already is.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've said I really loved about this season is that I feel like there is just like I love the dynamics of this season, and that's kind of like the buzzword for me of this season early on was dynamic. And we've seen different things shift, and I think that's part and parcel with the fact that we've seen each tribe go to at least one tribal council, and this was literally as balanced of a pre-merge as we possibly could have gotten in terms of tribes going to tribal council. We got one tribe going once, and then two other tribes going twice. I love that because that means we got to spend a decent amount of time with each tribe. And circumstantially, the tribe that I feel like we've gotten the least from is Tuku, and that's the tribe that only went once. So I would have loved to see one more pre-merge tribe, but we just get to see Tuku go, and then we're literally going in 4-4-4 at merge. That would be really, really interesting. But I mean, I'll take this as a nice consolation for the fact that I think we're probably never going to get something like that, or at least it's very, very unlikely. But I've loved this season's dynamics, and I still feel like we've gotten such a good grasp of everybody. After like episode 3, there was no person on the cast that I couldn't point to and tell you something about them, be it just on a game level, on a personal level. And that's something that I love because in so many seasons prior, you get to like episode 5 or episode 6, and there's still like one or two people that you're just like, okay, like they're there. I know roughly that they're in this group, but that's it. And that's what I love about this season is that it feels like they have a lot of these really fleshed out characters.
For sure. I think this season right now, although I think 45 and 46 have been like the improvements, I think 47 right now is showing as like the best edited season right now. Like all these little segments, like they add up, I feel like Genevieve hallucinating about Keyshawn, like that was funny. And just like how they're editing the players in general. I don't really have anyone who I'm necessarily complaining about with like their edit because I feel like the people who like get the most confessionals deserve it, or if they're not getting enough confessionals, I feel like they're just not really interesting to the game regardless. So I feel like they've been doing a great job just like with the general editing of the season so far.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think this episode alone, every single person got a confessional, and there's a couple players, I think it's Rome and Sam, that have 31 and 35 confessionals respectively. That's the most of the season. And then I believe there's, I think off the top of my head, two players that only have nine. And I'm curious, I'm going to make it a game. Can you guys guess which two players only have nine confessionals?
Uh, hmm.
Rachel and no way, you think it's no, I feel like Genevieve caught up already.
I think so too. I think I'm gonna say hmm,
I'll say
Caroline and well, Caroline had a little bit of screen time.
I'll say Rachel and Tiana. Those are my two
I'm gonna
picks.
say Rachel and
Now
Caroline.
I'm going to look.
Oh, I thought
I'm
you knew
gonna
the
look
answer.
really quickly now. No, I
Oh,
knew the answer, but now I want to actually. Now that we're taking this seriously, I want to be like, oh crap, I need to like look and actually make sure this is right.
This is
Hold
very
on,
unprofessional
hold
of
on.
you.
Shush, shush your mouth. This is completely fine.
I thought I was
Where
coming on
is
the
it?
most professional Survivor podcast.
I am a professional, okay? I have the confessionals right here. Yes, okay, I was right. Okay, never mind. I'm good. It's Kyle and Caroline.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen so much of Kyle.
I mean he's prominent in challenges. He got one confessional this episode. He got one,
Oh,
and it wasn't a bad confessional, but I mean Kyle's, in my opinion, only really had one episode where he was visible in, and that was the episode after TK went home, where he went on the journey, he lost his vote, and then he was also just after TK went home, he had the most to say about that because he was the only one remaining left out of the vote. And Caroline, I mean, I feel like I still know basically nothing about her as a person, but I know her pretty well as a gamer. So that's on that level, like I can complain about Caroline's edit, but those two, only non-confessionals so far. I do feel like I have a decent grasp of both of them though, which is props to the editing this season.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, we didn't see much of Kyle. I think it was like about like uh
Veggie dog.
the hot dog. But I think Caroline, she had a more like I don't know. She was more visible in this episode as compared to like previous ones, although that may not be saying much because hasn't been uh shown the most often. But like I said, with the conversation with the other two women, and especially that scene back at like that scene with Tiana back at Tuka or whatever, I think potentially we could be I don't know, setting up some sort of Caroline storyline. I don't know. Maybe just the way season is being edited, because like Genevieve, first couple episodes was practically invisible, but now like, her story is starting to like get set up, and it might be the same thing for a couple people going into this mergatory and this merge. Maybe, yeah, we haven't seen much of Caroline and Kyle, but maybe their time will come soon. Hopefully. We'll see.
I feel like Caroline's time will come. I feel like Kyle will kind of, in my opinion, I feel like he's going to kind of maintain where he's at right now, where he'll get a circumstantial confessional now, but he's not going to be pulling any major moves. And then, like, I feel like he just goes like a split tribal, where he's just like an odd man out, and and he just falls between the cracks, where he's just like, okay, well, I guess Kyle goes here. I feel like that's the circumstance. But Caroline, I do feel like we're being set up something. One thing interesting that I'll talk about and I'll get your guys' opinions on is that the dynamic between Gabe, Sue, and Caroline is getting a bit more complex to me because at first, initially, like after the first few episodes, I felt like it was Sue and Caroline were these like really tight two, and then Sue was also working with Gabe, and then Caroline was fine with Gabe, and they were kind of a three. After this episode, we saw Sue say, I'm pretty sure twice that Gabe was her closest ally, or basically her closest ally. I'm pretty sure she didn't just out and out say Gabe is my closest ally. How dare Tiana say this? She did say, Gabe is kind of my closest ally up there. There wasn't like 100% certainty, but that could just be because that's just how she said it while she was out there. But I find that really interesting because my perception, even though it wasn't directly stated, was that Sue and Caroline were a lot closer. But at least from Sue's own word this episode, it seems like Gabe and Sue might be a bit closer than that.
Yeah, yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought that Caroline and Sue were closer, and like I've been saying throughout the season, I think Gabe thinks he's playing the other two, but they're playing them. But I guess not. Like Gabe and Sue are much closer than I thought they were, and I found I think that is interesting. I think it kind of made me change how I thought Caroline was going to play the games. I felt like Caroline was going to stick with Stu, but I think eventually, like Caroline seems smart of a game player as much as little as we see of her. But like, I feel like she'll figure that out that Stu wants to protect Gabe and vice versa, and she'll lean on those relationships made during her journey and her sanctuary or whatever visit with the other tribes. And I feel like she will be the first one from her tribe to hop ship and try to make new alliances, despite being the one being like, we have to stick together for merge the entire episode.
Yeah, that's not unfair. I just by like the general narrative of the season, be it like I feel like there is generally just like a narrative this season of just like the women doing better than the men. And I feel like if I had to put a prediction down, what I would say is probably Caroline. I think Tiana's gonna go pretty quick. I'll say that now, out of Tuku. Like I think she makes a run at Gabe, and then that doesn't work out for her. Tiana goes as like Mergatory or something. I could see that happening. That leaves us with just four Tuku left, and I think what we could see happen is Caroline goes to Sue, saying Gabe's a big threat, maybe in a split tribal, maybe a bit past or before that, and say like Gabe's a big threat. He thinks he's using us, but we need to cut him because at the end of the day, he's a man. He'll beat us at the end just because he's a man. And then that'll tie in with Sue's storyline of being underestimated a lot by men in her life. And then it's going to be like a test of loyalty where Sue has to decide, do I go with Caroline or do I go with Gabe? And we ultimately see her take out Gabe. That's a real likely situation I see playing out.
Well, I mean, that's crazy. All this talk about Caroline, I mean, who knew for somebody who has been kind of invisible could potentially be, I guess, having more win equity. But we'll see as, I guess, the game progresses. I feel like we haven't spoken a lot about the Lavo tribe, so I guess let's talk about them. So we saw that Rome was being quite chaotic, even though they won the challenge and was throwing out all kinds of bits of information. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I thought like Rome was actually in a pretty good spot, especially Genevieve doing all that just to save Rome. I'm like, there's no way they'd just like get rid of him after like all that work. But I feel like Rome is definitely digging himself in a hole that might be very difficult to get out of, especially going into a mergatory merge situation. I mean, who knows? This guy likes to play very hard. He can easily go to the other tribes and just like spill all this information. So I guess thoughts on Rome's longevity in the game. I feel like, he won't last very long in this mergatory phase of the game.
Yeah, I got Rome going next episode. I think Rome is going next episode. I don't think he thrives in a merge situation at all. I think what's going to end up happening, I think Teeny is going to end up, planting some seeds about Rome with all the cross tribe relationships. And I think Teeny will end up going back to Genevieve and Saul. And like they will like want to take out Rome. Like they're not gonna try and stay together. I think they're gonna want Rome gone, especially now that he has no more advantages and he's no longer like safe at all. I think they feel like Rome being there is just gonna like be worse for their game than Rome not being there. So I think Rome is gone next episode, and I'm so sad about that because he's very entertaining. But the game moves on.
Definitely. I also love Rome. I'm loving him less just because, at least by how the game's gone, I feel like, in my opinion, he's now that he's facing a bit less opposition, at least from his perspective, he's gotten a bit more tame. Like episode three, episode four, Rome, he irritated me, but I loved him. I loved every bit of Rome. This episode, it kind of just felt like him going around trying to play the game. And an interesting dynamic is we kind of saw Genevieve treat him like a pet. Like, like you're good as long as, you're bringing me these little nuggets of information. But the second you're not, well, go on. You're going to go sleep outside tonight. That's really the vibe I got is like, she's kind of like treating him like a puppet, like a pet. And that's just like the vibe I got, which is really interesting that we got so little of Genevieve and now we're getting so much more of her. And not only so much more, but against Rome, who is like one of, if not the major character this season. And that's something really interesting. I don't blame Rome for trying to solidify something with Saul. Admittedly, I think he's just kind of in a lose-lose situation where he's just kind of at the end of his rope in terms of how far this style of game was ever going to carry him. Obviously, if he'd have been a bit more loyal to Genevieve and just kept telling her everything, I think he makes it a bit farther. But yeah, I think he's about at the end of his rope at this point. Although I will give him credit, not trusting Teeny at all, perfectly good read. Like just like saying like, yeah, no, I appreciate your bogus apology, but I don't care. I don't trust you. Which is something I love about Rome, at least, is that he may be a big character and he's very blasé. But Mason, this is something that I've been saying throughout the season, is that he's a villain, but he's not just a cartoonish villain where he's horrible at the game and everyone's just laughing around him. He's capable enough to get by. And that's what I really love about him, is that he's not just some buffoon that gets by. He's somewhat capable at the game. Isaiah, it's your turn to talk.
Um, I guess we can talk about the what's with all the laughter. Speaking of the good read or whatever, there was a little interaction with Gabe and Tiana. Basically, I guess we can talk about Tiana, which I think also, this is gonna be a woman's game to win, and I think we can have a dominant.
But not Tiana.
Yeah, not Tiana, but we can have a very dominant voting bloc, alliance of women. But yeah, Tiana is not doing very well. For some reason, she thought it was a very good idea to, throw out Gabe's name. Well, not throw out his name, but
It
I guess
it
talk about
worked.
it in a negative
I'm
way.
going to cut you off here, Isaiah. It worked for Gabler. Just going to throw that out there. Worked for Gabler.
You're gonna compare Tiana to Gabler? I don't,
I'm just saying that in a similar circumstance, a move
It's
like this
true.
ended with the person winning the game. So that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
like Gabler said, he was trying to throw Ellie's name by throwing out Ellie's name. Yeah, that doesn't make much sense. I mean, honestly, if Tiana does win this game, I mean, looking at, I guess, people's resumes right now and their positions, I mean, she'd be kind of like Gabler-esque in a way. I mean, she's not necessarily the best player or front runner. She kind of just popped up out of nowhere. I don't know. But anywho, like I said, seems like Sue came clean. Well, not came clean, but basically was very direct with Gabe and told him what Tiana said at the Survivor, was it called? The Survivor social hour.
Ah,
That's what,
social hour.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess we could talk about, you already talked about Rome, possible targets for like Mergatory or whatever you want to call this, the merge boot. I think Rome's up there. I think Tiana is up there, just seeing how much I guess control and how tight the voting block, well, alliance of Gabe, Sue, and Caroline, especially also with the numbers that Caroline can pull in with maybe this three person alliance of the three women. And honestly, I'd say it's probably just between those two. Nobody from Gata really stands out to me as somebody who is going to go home anytime soon, at least not in the next couple votes. So, uh yeah, I mean that's all I gotta say. I mean, Who do you guys think, I guess besides Rome, or if you guys agree or disagree with me, who do you think is going to go out Mergatory or Merge Boot? I guess pre-Jerry.
Go
I
ahead.
think yeah, I think for sure. I think Rome, like that was my straight up prediction. And Tiana is definitely in danger. I can see two storylines playing out. I could see Tiana versus Gabe like as the vote, or I can see Rome versus Teeny, and I think it's going to end very badly for Rome. But I think those are the two storylines that can play out. I don't see Rachel really going out for revenge against like Sam, Andy, and Sierra super fast. I can see her just trying to get past the rounds, like going into survival mode. So yeah, I think those are going to be the storylines. I do think the tribes just at least one of the tribes turn on each other very early.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like if I had to put my foot down, something about Tiana going. Maybe it's just because we saw less of Tuco, so it feels overdue for someone to go to
Go.
that tribe. But that's
Mhm.
what I would say for what did I say?
You said Tuco.
Whatever. Shut up, I said. But I feel like that's what I would see happening. One thing that we didn't talk about, and something that, at least thinking off the top of my head in the new era, is a bit unique, is the status of idols going into the merge. We have one fully powered idol and nothing else. Other than, I mean, we have the three amulets, which could all theoretically be an idol. Do I actually see the three of them combining? I mean, who is it actually? It's what, Teeny,
Any
Andy,
and
and
Caroline.
Caroline.
Caroline. Maybe they could combine them. I don't see that happening necessarily. But I also don't necessarily see any of them going home immediately. But at least in the status of idols right now, we have those and Sue's fully powered idol, presumably a merge idol, or maybe we're going to get a really quick scene before the merge where we see someone on Gata or someone on Lavo find an idol.
Yeah, for sure. I think is this the first new era season where a full powered idol is or I guess not counting 41 or 42, where like a full
I
powered idol going in?
I think the
I
three
think so, that nobody
bracelets
knows about. Yes,
from,
that
from
nobody knows about.
43
Yes.
from 43, right? The three idol bracelets.
Yeah, the idol bracelets, those were fully powered idols. I would say that at least this feels different. And like I just said, this is the first time it's an idol that nobody knows about. So
True.
Hmm.
Well, we
that
think
could be
no one
pretty
knows
big.
about Stu
Yeah.
like got like sussed out a little bit when she found it. But
Yeah.
um yeah, I'm actually speaking of that, I'm actually like surprised we didn't hear anything else about it. Like it was just like Tiana and Caroline being like, Sue was acting a little suspicious. I'm worried about that. And then nothing else about it. So maybe they just dropped it. But like, um, I'm glad that no one knows about Sue's idol because I feel like nowadays in the new era, everyone knows about everyone's advantage. So if Sue can keep that a secret, even from Gabe, I think she should keep it a secret, even from Gabe. I think it'll be some good gameplay, and that's why I think Sue's gonna go far in this game too. So good for Sue for finding an idol, especially with the
Yeah.
circumstances in which she found it.
Definitely. I mean, I'm curious. I think one thing to talk about, which isn't really that big, but like I think Kyle is the only person without a vote going into this merge because he's the only one that didn't go back to tribal council after that journey. So that's something to point out is I mean, he doesn't have a vote. So that's one less number for Tuku. Notably, most likely one less number for Tiana to stay, if I had to guess. And to touch on what you said, yes, I think Tiana was shown to be a little suspicious of Carol or of Sue, but I also kind of got the vibe from how that was edited. I feel like it's more meant to set up a Sue versus Tiana storyline than it was Tiana really or like really thinking Sue has anything. And I said it then, I'll say it now. I think it's not going to end well for Tiana.
Yeah.
Anything else to talk about? We had the chicken debate. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on this. I know there was kind of a narrative after this episode from the Survivor community that Jeff's got a bit soft. And I agree. I mean, 18 eggs right off the bat is a lot. I was expecting that maybe they get like eight, eggs, and that's it. But they got 18 eggs. That's how many a person that was on that tribe? That's like what, 3 or 4 a person for how many people were on that tribe. That's a pretty sizable amount. If they'd have had the chance to cook them, maybe they would have done a bit better.
I don't know if you guys heard this or not. I think this is true. This was apparently confirmed. I think this is a new era rule. The tribes are allowed to trade in a reward for a like previous reward. Actually, that technically wasn't a previous reward. So I guess that doesn't really surprise me that that was allowed, the whole egg exchange. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, 18 is actually kind of a lot. And they didn't even get to eat the eggs because they lost the flint. And now that's like 18 eggs split like between 4 people. I mean, or maybe not because with the Mergatory or whatever. I don't know about you guys, but like I know this is probably like a bad social move. But let's say if I was like on the Gada tribe and we didn't get to eat our eggs, and then the two tribes come, Mergatory, like I don't want to share like those eggs with the other tribes. Like we won the eggs, but of course that's like the bad it's not good gameplay, and I feel like they might feel obligated to do so. And they got yeah, like 18 eggs away. That's like 1 egg a person. I don't know. Very interested to see how they go about that, if that gets shown at all, and how they decide to split the eggs, whether or not they want to share with the other tribes or not.
That is
Yeah,
a
I
good
mean,
point. That is a good point. About the eggs. I'm just mad they didn't name one of the chickens Mark II. Like it was right there. They could have named it Mark II, but they didn't. Uh, but yeah, with the eggs, I feel like at that point, like I feel like you take the risk, eat like 1 or 2 eggs raw, and then like for the nutrition, and then just throw the rest away so they can't have any.
then get medevac from salmonella, but seemed like a good idea at the time. I don't know.
People eat raw eggs. That's
I
a good
want
thing. I mean, I don't know if
They
it's
do eat
good for
raw eggs. You're
you,
not supposed to eat raw
but people
eggs.
do it. So I don't know.
Yeah, beyond that, I mean, I'm curious, Mason, do you have an actual winner prediction? Because I don't know if you know, but my history of winner predictions this season has not been great. Isaiah's winner prediction, Sue, is
Oh,
still in
she's
the game.
thriving. She's running the game and she's gonna
Yeah.
win. Mhm.
My winner prediction, Asia, went out a little bit ago. My winner prediction after Asia went out, Kashan, he didn't last much longer. And now my current winner prediction is somebody that I've literally been circling around since the premiere. I was either choosing this person or Asia, and I went with Asia. I have Sierra as my winner prediction now, and I feel pretty good about that at least. How do you feel about that, and how do you feel about your winner prediction, whoever it is?
Regarding Sierra, I think Sierra is eventually gonna get sick of like Andy and Sam like within the game, and I feel like she's gonna end up taking the shot at Sam. I don't know. This is just like something I feel in my bone. I feel like she's gonna take the shot at Sam and be like, "That's a great move," but then it actually wasn't a great move for her, and then she's gonna go out like sixth or seventh. I think that's where I put her on my thing. Or
Is he lagging for you as well, Isaiah?
Yes, he is. Uh-oh.
Well said, Mason. Well said.
oh no. Okay, am I good? Am I good now?
Yes, you are.
Better now, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Whatever
All
you
right.
said, I agree.
Oh,
Uh-oh. Is he still there? Well, thanks for listening to the Survivor Conquest podcast. Thank you, Mason. It was a great time.
No.
no, 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 it's not over yet. Oh,
It's not over yet, I know.
Click.
What else is No, you're okay, Mason. What okay, okay, I think we're doing
Okay.
better. Don't worry, this happens with all the major podcasts. They have growing pains. Um, I remember sometimes when Phil and Will, sometimes they would just have to cancel the stream because their Wi-Fi was so bad. So like, you know, you're just Phil
Yeah.
right now.
Um. All right. Yeah. TLDR. I
Anyway,
think Sierra. I think Sierra's gonna take out Sam. It's gonna be a bad move, and then Sierra's gonna get out sixth, seventh. That's my prediction. My winner pick. My week 1 winner pick was Teeny. Teeny's still in the game, although I feel like Teeny's edit has slowly been declining as like how good it was. My new winner pick is actually. I think they're trying out a new edit. I think it's Genevieve. Like that's my new winner pick. I think Genevieve
That's the sole
has,
Canadian on the cast, baby. That's the sole Canadian. Let's go.
yeah, I think that Genevieve has a very solid chance at winning, and I think the new era is always trying these new type of edits. I feel like so. I think editing someone's game as like their actual edit, like being a snake in the grass, like I feel like there's no way that doesn't go far. I don't know.
I'm curious.
They would have.
Did she say at some point she was a snake in the grass? Like, is that a line from the premiere I missed, or has she just said that at some point? I don't remember exactly.
Not that
Oh
I.
no, she's never. I don't think she's ever said that. I just that's just how I'm viewing her game right now. You know.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
that's fair. Beyond that, I'm trying to think through the episode. I mean, how I watched the episode just before we hopped on to do this podcast, and even I'm having trouble remembering exactly what this episode all entailed of. I mean, leading into tribal council, I feel like we kind of touched base on all of that. We touched base on Gabe hating Tiana, Lavo. I will ask, what's your opinion on Saul, Mason? Do you love Saul or do you hate Saul? Because that's something that like we've kind of debated, Isaiah and I, with our whoever I guessed is. We can't decide whether Saul's awesome or just kind of there and dumb.
um, I think Saul. I like Saul as like a character. I think he's very like his game's just been very tragic. Um, I think he can bounce back. He even said it himself this episode that he doesn't know what the fuck is going on. So like I feel like I don't know. I think he has the potential to bounce back, but I don't think Soul will really be able to fully recover to the point where he'll win the game.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get the vibe that, like I said, this is a woman's season to win. And I feel like I mean, it's sad to say that like I'm kind of already counting all of the men out and like they're just kind of like I'm just kind of waiting for them to go or waiting for one or two of them to be losing finalists. That's honestly how I feel at this point. I find it really, really exciting that I haven't narrowed down who exactly I think could genuinely win at this point because I could list them all out. I think Sue could still win. I think Caroline could still win. I think Teeny could win. I think Genevieve could win. I think Sue could, or I think Sierra could win. I'm not counting out Rachel. That's still six people that are coming into Mergatory and figuring out that puzzle of exactly who's going to win. That's something that I love about Survivor, and that's how I treat Survivor. Is it's a puzzle to try and figure out who the winner is. And I'm really excited that we're at this point, and not a single one of them necessarily stands out as just like this is the winner. And that's something that I really, really like going into this. It sucks that like it just feels like it's entirely one-sided, and then the narrative of the season is that the men might as well not even be on the island. But that's just sometimes how it works out on Survivor. And I'm loving that we have these six capable players that I really don't know which one of them is going to win at this point.
I mean, I know Sue's gonna win because my reads on this podcast have been so good. Do you agree,
Didn't
Con?
you say that Jesse was going to win season 43?
I wanted Jesse to win season 43.
Right. Who did I say was going to win season 43?
Gabler, right? You said that as a joke. You didn't actually mean that.
I did not. I was one of the only people. I was one of the only people who said I actually see merit to Gabler's game because the edit wasn't undermining him. So, nah, because I
That's
think I was a
impressive.
genius.
That's impressive.
I legitimately felt like I saw Gabler had a chance because the edit wasn't necessarily undermining him when he spoke. The players were undermining him when they spoke, but the edit wasn't undermining him. Anyway, I'm smarter than Isaiah, even though
All
I've
right.
gotten two winner
Well,
predictions wrong, and I'm on my. Hey, hey, hey.
I was gonna
I'm
say,
not done talking.
okay,
Go
well,
ahead.
you can respond. You can respond to what I'm gonna say. I was gonna say, Mr. I guess Edgic, because you are more well aware of the Edgic than I am. I mean, you said this. I think we can all agree, like, again, a woman's going to win this season, and you feel like it could be anybody. But just looking from strictly from an Edgic edit perspective, who do you think are like the top contenders?
Well, that's the most difficult thing is that by standard EDGIC, meaning pre-season like 41, I would say Sue, most likely. But there really hasn't been a consistent winners edit since season 41 started. At that point, it's just been like, okay, who's going to win? Let's try and figure it out. The most obvious one was D from season 45. I didn't even watch that season, but I heard that it was just like a lot of people were thinking one of the people doing the best. By conventional means, I would say Sue. but it's really, really difficult for me to pick one out of the six that I listed and say any of them really stand out as like, I feel like it's this person. My gut, and because they're my winner pick, I'm going to say Sierra. But on a genuinely honest note, I really couldn't say any six of them stand out as me saying this person really stands out Edgic wise that they're the winner.
I mean, I don't know. Looking at the like new era winners, I feel like Erica is kind of like, okay, nobody saw that coming. She was a bit more quiet. I mean, Marianne, I thought had a lot of screen time. She was a bit more of a louder, like bolder personality. Same thing for Jam Jam. Dee was absolutely dominating the game. I thought Kenzie also had a pretty good edit. Gabler was very present as well, but I feel like maybe, I don't know, people just didn't think he was going to win. So. I think there still kind of is a winner's edit. It may not be what we are used to or
I
to expect. I don't know.
think I think there is. I mean, the only thing I can really note is that generally, unless they're absolutely forced to, editors avoid undermining the winner and intentionally really showing them to be wrong. The example I used previously was when Nick in season 37 played his fake idol, and then he kind of fumbled and he was just like, "Well, I'm playing this idol," and then Jeff asked him, "Okay, who you playing it on?" And then that question kind of caught Nick off guard. And then he's just like, well, I was going to wait to see their reactions. And it just caught him off guard. And then he ended up playing and wasting his actual idol. That is just something that they had to show. So that's something that I generally look for. And maybe it's not as consistent in the new era, but I generally hold a rule of thumb that they don't often undermine the winner in the edit unless they absolutely have to. And one thing I will at least note with this episode is that I feel like Sierra didn't get her way argument wise for how the vote went, but she wasn't necessarily told to be wrong. And it could be proven in time that she was right, being that Andy flips on them or just that they lose the numbers because they didn't have the people go with them. It could be proven not necessarily that Sierra was right, but that Sam was wrong and that it just doesn't work out for Sam. And Sierra's just like, I told you. And that's something I could see is that Sierra, like, we weren't necessarily presented a right side to the vote tonight. We were presented two different sides and we saw Sam come out on top. So I don't feel like Sierra was necessarily undermined, nor do I will say this for Teeny. I think she was very briefly undermined when Rome said, no, I don't trust her at all. But at the same time, we saw her immediately bounce back in the reward challenge where she then goes and spills all the beans and just like, I'm building something new for myself. We saw her immediately bounce back. So I wouldn't count that as her being undermined, more so set up for her immediate burgeoning into a brand new player. Um, Beyond that, if one of you guys wants to chime in, I'm not sure if either of you are Edgic guys. I know Isaiah really isn't, but that's the only thing I can really note is that I usually hold it as a rule of thumb that the edit doesn't try to undermine them. And I feel like Sierra Nortini was really undermined this episode despite some inherently bad things. I
I believe you. I'm not an Edgic guy. I don't check Edgic, but I believe you.
don't check Edgic either. I just kind of form my own, which is, I mean, that's probably why I'm not as accurate. I haven't been keeping up with Edgic at all in the new era. I just kind of go with what I know and what I look for just from a background in editing, and like how to tell a story. I just kind of have experience with that. That's kind of just what I look for, but it's difficult to say, especially in the new era. Beyond that, I'm not sure if either of you have anything you want to say, or we can go into bold predictions and regular predictions if we want to. But if any of you guys have anything to say, let me know.
Uh, I don't unless you do, Mason.
I got nothing. I feel like we touched on that episode fairly well.
We
Yeah, this
did. I
is,
will say,
go
shut
ahead.
up, Isaiah. I like this episode. Isaiah said it's one of the weaker episodes. I really like this episode. I think that was like an iconic exit for Annika, who we may have been expecting it for a super long time, but I really appreciated her as a character. So I liked this episode enough. It built off the previous five really well. Annoying reward challenge right before the merge, but I'm excited to go into the merge and see how all these different dynamics are tested. Um, you guys?
I I I agree. I do agree. I think it was probably the weakest of the episodes, but I still liked it. I thought it was a great. I mean, I especially the tribal that like the entire tribal like post challenge sequence. I enjoyed it the whole thing, but Um, and I thought on that note, I thought like just the challenge itself and also the entire season, I've been really enjoying like the actual challenges. Like they're new. Like it's still the same obstacle course puzzle at the end, but at the very least, like they're different obstacles and different puzzles and like I'm so glad that they're finally branching out so Carson can't come back at 50 with all his 3D printed puzzles.
I was just about to say Carson is kicking himself right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a good thing is they're doing different not different. Well, they are doing different puzzles and different challenges. Because in the early new era, they were kind of just reusing a lot of stuff. And that's what I said about the new era again, aligns with that. I feel like Survivor is feels cheap or cheaper. So it's nice to see, I guess, they're spending their money on new creative ideas. So that's always nice. But I guess I mean, I do agree. This was a good episode. I think 47 as a whole has been really good. It's just like compared to the other episodes, I feel like they've been so good that this one just, I don't know, is not as good as the other ones. I mean, even just like with this podcast, I think this is going to end up being our shortest, if not one of our shorter podcasts. They're just, I don't know, not there's not as much to talk about. But I guess
Mason, Mason, Mason.
it's
What
not
is wrong
Mason's
with
fault.
you?
It's not Mason's fault. I do believe the episode just, I don't know, it's not
I agree. There wasn't as much to talk about. I think it's mostly because the tribal that happened, fun tribal, but it's the tribal we've been waiting to happen for like 5 episodes now.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was pretty expected boot. So,
All right. Well, this should be an interesting predictions. So we have Mergatory. Isaiah, you're going to kick us off because I want you to have to go first. Give us your bold prediction and your generic prediction.
Okay, so my bold prediction, this isn't usually I think when I make my bold predictions, they kind of just apply to the next episode. This is going to be a season long, I guess, bold prediction. My bold prediction is that that alliance of Teeny, Caroline, and Rachel is going to play a huge role in the storytelling and the strategy of the merge. And those three, I think, are going to be pretty dominant, have a good amount of agency, and just, again, might be like one of the major or main storylines for the merge or mergatory. That's my bold prediction for the, whole season, I guess. And then my
All right.
boring like regular prediction. I think next episode we see Rome or Tiana go home. That's my
All
regular.
right. All right. My bold prediction, I think we see an edit heavily favored for Tiana to go home. Then we see her not win the initial challenge where they split into two teams, but we see her win the individual immunity challenge that happens later on. If they still do that, I don't know if they still do that. I can't remember. And then she's gonna win that, and then everyone's gonna be like, shit. And then we see Andy go home in a heartbreaking round. My generic prediction, I'll be different and say Rome specifically goes home.
all right. All right. My bold prediction is that when merge hits, Andy and Teeny become ride or dies and plan to either use or take out Caroline in the near future. That is my bold prediction. And my boring prediction, I'm gonna say they bring back the hourglass twist. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Um,
please no.
my boring prediction, I'm gonna say, is a lot of the episode is going to surround like I think there's gonna be a good segment where that surrounds like Gabe clearing his name from like Tiana's shenanigans.
I thought you were gonna say there's gonna be a good segment of Rome annoying people, and I was gonna be like, that's a good prediction. I think we're
That
gonna see that.
that one
All
too.
right, well, I believe that wraps us up.
That is it. Does anybody have any closing thoughts or anything? No, I'm assuming probably not.
Yeah, I was correct in Gabler winning Survivor 43. Thank you.
Congratulations, you made one correct prediction. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That was me being, like a little sarcastic or whatever.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right, so I guess that is it for the Survivor Conquest podcast recapping season 47, episode 5. We will see you guys next week, hopefully with a more entertaining and a lot more
What the
content.
fuck? What are you trying to say, Isaiah? Fuck,
No, I was talking
yeah,
about the
fuck you,
season. No,
Mason.
no, no,
Fuck you.
I wasn't talking about
You're
the
never getting on this
podcast.
podcast again.
I was
Go
talking
join Fisher in
about
the losers pit.
I was talking about this episode itself because we said
God, I can't wait for Jonah
we
to get
all
here.
agreed that this episode wasn't as entertaining. So with the Mergatory coming up,
No,
I
I
hope
know what you meant, Isaiah.
no, that's what I meant. I hope we see a more interesting episode. So I guess signing off. See you guys next week.